Hello, everyone, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of October the 30th till November the 5th, 2023. We have quite a powerful and super intense sky at play, but this is basically nothing new. We are at the finishing touch of the eclipses. Even though the eclipses took place already, we are still very, very heavily under their gravity, under their influence. So there is a lot of karmic energy still to play out this week, and of course all throughout November and into the early parts of December. This is not going to be anything new, but what is very important this week is that a major planet, a very important planet, Saturn, is standing still in the sky and preparing to go direct. And this is one of the major energy shifts that we are going to be feeling, experiencing very, very intensely, both collectively speaking and individually speaking as well. But of course, there are other energies which have been staying with us for a number of weeks and even months that are also going to flare up. They're also going to show their more, predominant symbolism. And one of these energies is, of course, Pluto continuing to square the nodes of the moon. And this is for the final time in our lifetime when we get Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, but also this particular square of the nodes. The north node, as a reminder, is in the sign of Aries, conjunct planetoid Aries. So very, very powerful, very, very potent, very eruptive, very explosive from a psychological and unfortunately not just perspective. So this is the final square between Pluto and planetoid Aries. The square between Pluto and Aries has been with us for a number of years now, and we can clearly see how it played out as social uprisings, as unexpected turnaround of events, and people, of course, demanding their sovereignty, demanding their justice. All of this has so much to do with the symbolism of Aries, but of course, Pluto activates all of this in a very, very intense way because it is doing its finishing touches in the sign of Capricorn, which is demolishing the old order by revealing secrets, by revealing truths, and by revealing basically the reality of the situation, a reality which can neither be placed into conspiracy, neither can be denied. It has to be, used the way we, see it playing out in our lives. So this is where this energy gives us the chance to take back our power. And if we don't like what we have, if we do not like what we see, to alchemize it or to take some kind of individual action in order to turn it around. And why do I say individual action? Well, first of all, because the North Node in the sign of Aries, with Aries, of course, does represent that the major focus is on the individual. Now, after December, so January next year, Pluto leaves Capricorn, entering into the sign of Aquarius, entering to stay here for the next around 20 years. Now, that energy represents more the collective. But in order for the collective to be healthy, to function in a harmonious way, to be empowered, Pluto, planet of power, it does need a very strong, healthy, balanced, and powerful individual. And that is what is in the process of making, in the process of creating right now as we speak. And that is not a very easy process, I have to tell you that. And the other energies which are very influential is, first of all, the Scorpio planets, the sun. On the 14th of November, the moon joins the sun here for a very intense new moon in Scorpio. But of course, that's a horoscope for another time. Mercury, Mars, and the sun are all in the sign of Scorpio. Also, planetoid Haumea is preparing to enter the sign of Scorpio. So that's a very, very strong emphasis on Scorpio. So endings, purge, the truth being revealed, the saddest truth, the most difficult to look at truth, because that is the nature of Scorpio. And of course, transformation, transmutation, whatever sacrifice is ongoing that needs to, have a purpose, that any sacrifice cannot be in vain, especially in this present moment. But at the same time, we also have the higher octave of Scorpio, which is basically the phoenix. We need to allow things to, be demolished. We need to allow things to pass. We need to allow certain things to die in order for rebirth and renewed hope to take its place. And that is a very, very difficult process, even though important lunations, for example, eclipses and other energies, for example, the South Node transiting Scorpio in the past year and years, have prepared us for this present moment. So if you recall back, dark nights of the soul, very, very, I want to say, violent almost, psychological purges, when we basically, our beings vomited, I'm so sorry to use these horrible terms, vomited out our traumas, the blockages of the past, everything that broke our hearts, everything that disappointed us, all our failed relationships, our failed success journeys. All of these were very almost like obsessively targeted by the karmic forces in the past years. It was almost like the purge was, imperative. We didn't really have a choice. And we might have wondered at that time, why so intense? Why so serious? Why don't I have the choice to choose when I want to get rid of the trauma or blockage or whatever? Well, this was the reason why, because it had to prepare us for this. And also the nodes of the moon last year and even the beginning of this year, transiting the Scorpio Taurus axis, it had to return us to nature, Taurus. It had to return us to simplicity. It had to basically return us to our instincts, that deep natural intelligence inside of us that has the answer to any problem. It had to return us to tap into that, to consult that first of all, and distance us from the complexity, from the absurd research of Scorpio, from the, how should I say, the obsessive success driven side of Scorpio. So all of that big karmic energy that we lived just a few years ago, and it didn't end, because that is basically like an ongoing process. But maybe the purge part was the hardest, which one way or another is behind us by now. All of that took place in that manner in order for to prepare us for the present moment, whatever it is that we are about to experience individually and collectively alike, and most importantly, for us to have a saying, for us to have an option. If we cannot politically or physically or economically, no problem, we can have it spiritually, especially that in the months to come next year, Neptune reaches an erratic degree of Pisces. That's when, the spirit does something practical. That's the moment of maximum empowerment. Not always in the best possible sense, because shadow expression and all of that, but power is still power. That's when it can actually turn things around in a much, straightforward sense. And after then, this Neptune and Saturn will conjunct. They will meet, if I'm not mistaken, at the very beginning degrees of Aries. They won't meet in Pisces in their precise conjunction. That is the first breath. That is where we truly have to begin the new as well, not just leave the old behind. So, long story short, let's take a look at what we have playing out in our lives through the week. So we are right now at the 30th of October, sorry, when the moon just recently disjuncted Uranus. It's still a conjunction, but they're not all that close together, and it holds a trine with Pluto. That might be a moment, just a small moment, unfortunately, but still it matters, of a saving grace, because this Saturn in a standstill, because we begin the week with Saturn basically standing still in the sky, not really moving. That causes the sensation of big blockages. That causes the sensation that we're totally lost in life because we are standing in one place and no area of our lives is advancing, or if it's advancing, it's not advancing in the positive phase, it's advancing in the deconstruction. We know that the positive follows, but we're still in the deconstruction phase. So it's not a very pleasant or easy energy. Also, having a healthy sense of hope, a healthy sense of faith is also quite difficult, especially this week, because Jupiter is perfecting a semi-square it holds with Neptune. Now, that's not an easy energy. It is a semi-square, so it's basically more like a psychological imprint, a psychological nuance. Yet these are two very powerful planets, planets that together co-rule the sign of Pisces. So it's really about how we perceive reality psychologically speaking. And one of the major lessons, major wisdom of the semi-square, more collectively, of course, not all that much individually, is that religion and Jupiter has been teaching us big things about religion as it transited Capricorn. A lot of relevant world events happened, and that is 2019 and 2020, if I'm not mistaken. 2020, absolutely. Something like that, because I don't want to check it right now. But it represented the dark side of the traditional, rigidly traditional elements of religion. That is where, if, for example, religion is more Virgo-like than Pisces-like, it's not a really good expression. Oppositely, if religion is extremely Piscean-like and has no Virgo in it, well, then that's just simply worshiping chaos, isn't it? So we need to have a very balanced approach in religion, because religion needs to reflect our true spirituality of the present moment, not how it was a few hundred or even 1,000 years ago, but of the present. And Virgo is, on one hand, in this context only, religious discrimination and, blindly immersing into religious dogma, which doesn't even have to make any sense right now. Yet still, for the love of it, for the belief in it, because the mind is programmed to believe blindly, it will not go anywhere positive. But and why do I emphasize on Virgo? Well, on one hand, because Venus is finishing her job in Virgo, and Black Moon Lilith recently entered Virgo, and Juno is also in Virgo. So, you know, it's emphasized in its own way. So this is what these two planets are teaching us. What is healthy faith, what is healthy spirituality, and what is not healthy. You know what I mean? And also spiritual power. Spiritual power gives us, you know, this ability to rise, to soar above anything that might be in our lives in 3D. Now, of course, not in a delusional way, because that is just pure Pisces. It has to be healthy faith, if you know what I mean. You truly need to feel it. You truly need to be it. You know, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus asks us to embody. Neptune in the sign of Pisces asks us to believe with all our strength, with all our force. Now, the two simultaneously are not possible because we cannot embody the unlimited version of our faith because that would distort and destroy reality, basically. So we need to find a healthy expression. But the biggest lesson here is that rigid, blind traditions which don't reflect who we are in the present moment cannot be part of spirituality. You know, religion has to have spirituality in it because otherwise it is just a political game. Anyway, this semi-square between the two planets, Jupiter and Neptune, is really, really going to challenge us to tap into our hope and faith. But the thing is that when we try to tap into something which is truly not aligned with our deepest self, our deepest truth, we won't be successful. We won't be feeling it. It doesn't matter what we do physically, how many candles we light, what kind of sacred texts we recite. It will have absolutely no effect. We have to tap into our own unique, distinctive version of the spirit. You know, our own personal modus operandi, how to rise above. So this is where blind ritual is not gonna do anything, but neither will blind fantasy. Because even any belief does need, in order to affect us, at least one physical component, a gesture, lighting a candle, if not anything else, but lighting it with intent, the intent to manifest it, in the intent to start something here in matter. And this will be so, we're forcefully being taught this right now. But as I said, every single individual through their own personal modus operandi and their own means, their means that are within them instinctually. Nature already gave us the wisdom and the knowledge and the information. We just need to tap into our instincts in a way we could not before. That has all the answers. So basically, it is really teaching us how to use the power of our belief, our strength, our faith to make a choice, to choose our futures. And this isn't all that fantasistic as it may sound, because we generate all reality. And this is a, a big discovery in quantum physics, in neuroscience, in every other scientific branch that you want. We truly generate reality. And this is basically the core of everything. If we want to generate a new reality, we really need to go deep within ourselves and dissolve the old one. Saturn in the sign of Pisces is expert at that. It dissolves Pisces, the water, the corrosive mists and waters, the brine of Pisces dissolves the old structures, the old sense of logic, the old security, and the old requirements of what faith means to us, if you know what I mean. So this is going to be quite an interesting and very intense week spiritually, but not just. As I said, the moon trining Pluto, back to that. is gonna give us a moment of great empowerment when we do feel a strength within ourselves, when we do believe in our talents, in our skills, and everything in our values to break stagnation and to break boundaries. Another energy that is with us, especially at the beginning of the week, Venus holding a trine with Uranus. Now, Venus's trine with Uranus perfects the next day, but it's still an operational energy. Venus, as I said, is not very strong in the sign of Virgo, yet it rules the sign of Taurus. So this trine is very, very helpful in a practical way. It can represent solutions to certain urgent problems, blockages in our material lives, in our practical lives. It can also represent a really positive coincidence, surprise, event in life which is basically unexpected, which makes you feel valuable, which gives you a good advice, which gives you a good idea, which gives you some solutions, which empowers you one way or another. Or, because Uranus is retrograde, it may be something that you done, initiated, communicated in the past, in the recent past, let's say, that returns to you. You get the feedback, you get the quantum loop, you get the reverberation right now. So this is a really, really positive energy. And collectively speaking, technology can solve something. Technology can solve an urgent problem. Venus and Virgo, in the present context, can represent humanitarian crisis. So there can be a solution, there can be something that actually works there. Now, another energy is that this Venus later on is going to hold a quincunx with the North Node. So, and Aries, and of course, planetoid Aries. So we shall see how this plays out, because, this quincunx represents that even though the will, the gesture, the money, the resources, whatever, Taurus is there, the heated emotions and the tactical situation may disrupt all of this. But anyway, and also at the same time as Venus starts progressing to the end degrees of the sign of Virgo, it starts holding an opposition with Neptune. These planets are each other's octaves. Venus the lower octave and Neptune the higher octave. Now Neptune is unconditional love, humanitarian action. It is the Christ consciousness. It is the spirit of communion. It is everything basically that has to do with unbound love. While Venus in the sign of Virgo is quite the opposite. Very thought out action, putting value where value can, do something positive, where it can grow. Everything has to be practical for the sign of Virgo. So this, like for any opposition, the balanced middle path, the compromise might be the right way to use this energy. Because, collectively speaking, it's very obvious how this plays out. What is real help? What is humanitarian help? How do we embody our compassion? How do we embody our human spirit? Neither extreme Pisces is okay, neither extreme Virgo. Individually, however, this can represent, lessons of what healthy love is. And love in any way, shape, and form. Parental love, romantic love, unconditional love, friend love, neighborly love, love, corporal love, why not? So this asks us to find a good balance in how we give love and how we receive love. Balance in order to delight us, feed us, serve us in one way or another, because love is basically the food of the heart, the food of the creative center, the food of the soul. So in one way or another, we do need a reciprocation. love does need to serve us as well, but at the same time, the honor, the privilege, and the spiritual gesture which elevates us to give love. So this is where we do need to find the balance here, our own unique individual balance, which works for us, of course. Now, another not so positive side of this energy is, of course, either discrimination or foolishly non-discrimination. Like, what does, let me give you an example of foolish non-discrimination. Let's love all animals. I don't think it would be a good idea to go and pet a wild lion. It might go the right way, but it might go a very, very wrong way. You know what I mean? This is where we need to really be in balance, materially speaking, because Venus is the planet of resources, worth, value, money. Neptune is the planet of illusion, especially in the present context. So we really, really need to be careful here. And also, this aspect favors scammers, money laundering, and all of that. So if you receive suspicious emails and your gut tells you it's not real, then chances are it's not real. Another aspect that we do have is the Sun holding a semi-square with Neptune. Oh, sorry, with Venus. Now, this is, as I said, basically the same kind of energy. It frustrates us. It makes us ask, what is the right course of action in order to have our cake and eat it? And this is more individually, because the Sun, and at the very beginning of the week, we still have a Mars and Mercury conjunction. So the mind is very active. The mind wants solutions, wants something practical, wants to apply its tactics, its plans, its modus operandi for Mars to get where we need. Materially speaking, or with a hobby, with a project, with healing, with purge, whatever that Mars in Scorpio is triggering in our lives for us personally. So that these two planets activate Scorpio very strongly. The Sun is the light of our consciousness. So we finally want to get out of stagnation. We want to feel that finally things are going fast forward. But especially at the beginning of the week, we cannot find that logic. We cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. But as I said, in a very practical Virgo, or I don't know, mercurial way, we are not in, the big picture of how are we going to advance from A to Z or A to B. So that causes a lot of frustration. Now going to the 31st of the to the 31st of October. Now, of course, this is a very special day in so very many ways. Not only is that we are still under the influence of the eclipse, which means the veil between the worlds is still very thin, but we have the celebration of Samhain or Halloween, Day of the Dead, or the fires of Hecate, or however you may call this. This is a very, very special moment when the veil between the worlds is not just astrologically thin, but it's thinned by us, by our celebration, by our spiritual intent to honor the dead, honor the invisible, or whatever it is your specifics of the celebration. So I'm wishing everyone a very, very blessed Samhain. And also, this is where I would like to ask everyone to truly honor the dead this day, because, the numbers are mounting up. So something that we can do for those souls is to give them a little bit of light, to give them love, to help them do whatever it is that they need over there. some to pass on, others to find forgiveness, others to level up, others to go into regeneration mode. You know, every single soul with their own unique stories, but offering light and love and compassion and honest thoughts to the spirits of the dead at this time. Not just our own deceased family members, but every ancestor and everyone who is deceased is really, really helpful. And at the same time, speaking about Hecate, well, I want to include her in this horoscope to honor her on this day. Hecate is quite an important deity in everything that has to do with divination and also necromancy. So Hecate, during the Olympian Wars and all of that, tried her very, very best to stay neutral and not get involved. Only when she was forced to did she help the Olympians. But that also rewarded her that she was basically a diplomat. She was a friendly figure to every side involved in any conflict. And she took residence in the what's the word I'm looking for? In the nether world, or, you know, I don't necessarily want to say the infernal regions. So basically the land of the dead. And she did a lot of good there. She guided the lost souls. She helped heroes. She was a how should I say, a maternal figure, almost like a big sister to Persephone after she became Hades' wife. She accommodated her, she showed her around, and basically she helped Persephone do a lot of good in Hades' realm. So basically she earned herself the right to be goddess of necromancy. So on the 31st, Hecate, she is an asteroid in astrology, just moved into the sign of Virgo, which means she is opposing Saturn. And this I find very, very interesting because, you know, Saturn is standing still in the sky. So Saturn's symbolism in the spiritual realm of Pisces is greatly amplified. Hecate and Virgo Virgo is a symbol of purity. Virgo is a symbol of absolute dedication. So this day can be quite powerful for divination. In order for us to be able to look at certain things in our life, which usually we don't have a great deal of understanding with. Why? Because feelings are involved, the past is involved, a great deal of subjectivity is involved. So regardless of our divinatory skills, we cannot see things clearly because of the subjectivity. This very rare the opposition itself is not rare, but this very real moment gives us the chance to perceive things in a divinatory way, more precisely, more down to earth clearly than usual circumstances. So yes. And also on the 31st, this is where we have, let me just show you this, White Moon Selena. So White Moon Selena is the highest octaves of the soul. It is our soul's greatest aspiration, the benevolence of the soul, the power of the soul, basically, but in, you know, white moon, in a positive way, in an elevated way. So you see this white moon conjunct the north node and of course planetoid Aries, and it squares Pluto with precision. So it's gonna be hard for the soul to hold the frequency, to hold its true benevolent nature, to hold basically its highest aspirations. Why? Because Pluto challenges us. Either that we're powerless, the stagnation, the blockages, We cannot do anything. We are useless, basically. Yet this is the other side of the challenge. Maybe from one perspective, that's absolutely true, but we do have our soul power. And especially in the sign of Aries, you cannot stop the soul because it will find a way to express itself. So, this is the positive part of the square. This day, Venus perfects her trine with Uranus. So this can be a positive surprise that reaches us. This can be something which gives us an alternative option. Unusual attractions may occur. Something might spark up our interest, job, hobby, activity, daily routine, etc., etc. This is quite a beautiful energy. Now moving on, especially on the second. Actually, is it the second? Well, yeah, the second, third, something like that, is where Mars, first Mercury, and then Mars starts holding a quincunx to Chiron. Chiron retrograde in the sign of Aries. Here, this is Chiron, this is Mars. Now, this energy is obviously not an easy energy because Mars is planet of war and action. In Scorpio, very intense action that can wound or that can open wounds. So this is where, personally speaking, we must be aware for our treasure. I keep, destroying my microphone. So our treasure-seeking action, symbolically to be understood, whatever goal we are focusing on, etc., etc., not to wound, not to be excessive, not to walk over corpses. Sometimes the end result doesn't justify the means. So we really, really need to be careful with this. On the world stage, it's very obvious that certain actions will wound. And, with Mercury, that means disclosure, revelation, truth coming out, secrets coming out, and in the sign of Scorpio, especially modus operandi. So that can wound as well. When we look at certain, hard to look at truth and things that have actually happened. Now, also on this third, we have the Sun opposing Jupiter. Jupiter is expansive, especially in the sign of Taurus. It can expand how we feel about our world value, stability, material situation, how pleasure, the delight of our five senses in our lives, and everything that we embody. So this energy might be a little bit heavy because Sun in Scorpio, elimination, everything that we want to leave behind, everything that we want to purge, everything that we want to disown, for example, debts and things that drain our material resources, drain our energy, drain our focus, etc., etc. So everything that we want to disown, we want to get rid of, is a bit amplified, magnified. Now, the choice here is to be overwhelmed by this, for us to lose hope, to lose faith. Am I never gonna get to point from A to B, or I'm never gonna become this, I'm never gonna be stable, I'm never gonna live decently. All of this is a possibility, but with an opposition, the other side of the spectrum is that this is what I have in my life right now. It's not ideal. I couldn't eliminate this and that and that. I'm working on it, but I am gonna be resilient. Jupiter in Taurus, persistence and perseverance, gets us there. Because that is something that both Saturn and Jupiter have in common in this, even though alchemically and astrologically they're almost like opposite planets. With perseverance, we get there. Saturn, persevere in a work, in an action, start developing a mastery, and you'll get there. Jupiter, persevere in faith, persevere in, of course, certain expanded Jupiterian actions, and you'll still get there, you know. But one is the one side of the spectrum, the other is the other side of the spectrum. But Jupiter, believe in luck, because at one moment, luck will come to you. With Saturn, believe in hard work, because it will pay off at one point. So this is basically how to work with these two planets. So the Sun opposing Jupiter, it doesn't matter if right now I'm still in the deep, I'm still, you know, with everything in my life that I don't want, because I'm still gonna get there. I'll just persevere. But of course, you know, this can also trigger our sense of justice, in this case, injustice. It can really trigger the urgency for us to evolve materially, our material fears. That is gonna swallow me. The bank is gonna come and take my house. I'll be even more poorer than I am right now. So this is what we need to, you know, be careful with. By this time, we must also not forget that Saturn is truly standing still in the sky, because on the next day it is officially out of retrograde. Now Saturn will not pick up speed this week, so we are going to be feeling the powerful Saturnian influence. It is in the sign of Pisces, so it is more karmic than ever. So we are really going to be feeling a certain kind of, let's say, heaviness. But this heaviness is not really rooted in anything physical. We're just going to be feeling the heaviness as if something truly came to an end. We might not see how, or we might not see what comes after, but it kind of dawns on us that a certain phase in our life truly ended. And building on the symbolism of the eclipse, something in our life is never ever going to be the same again. Also, this very powerful Saturn may cause strong sensations and moment of nostalgia when we remember how life used to be in a certain period, the good old days, when life used to be like this and that. But we also become aware that, yes, absolutely, that is a nostalgia, that is the past, but life is never going to be the same again. So we must not expect to relive in a palpable way the same memories, the same events, because the world and even our timeline is totally different. But at the same time, that Saturn also allows us to treasure what we have lived, to, you know, be grateful that we were given those moments, those memories, and they are unique to us. They are our treasures. And every time we may feel disheartened and that the present is way too hard, we can always go back to revisit and deep within us, in that sense, relive those magical moments. But other than this is where we know that karma is going to be knocking at our door. Everyone with their own unique, you know, configuration. Keep in mind that Pisces is the sign of finalities. So all of us are ready to abandon something and enter into something new. But this is where the Saturn, all those things in life that maybe we don't necessarily have a power over, because some things do need karma and the course of fate to put an end to them. So it is those moments that are being prepared for us, and this is what we're going to be feeling very intensely. Also at this time, if you see, Mercury is opposing Uranus. Now, The negative side of this energy is where Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. And Mercury rules the media. In the sign of Scorpio, doom, gloom, death, toxicity, destruction. So this is where there is going to be a lot of fight in the media. Which side has more influence? Uranus opposing it, unexpected news, unexpected communication, unexpected turnaround of events, chaos. So this is where the news are going to be way too much for us. Chances are they're going to cause anxiety, panic attacks, certain reactions that are not necessarily natural from us, or for others, you know, violent, opposing actions, because Scorpio is the deep instincts. And also, Aries and Scorpio are two of those signs which represent our deepest primordiality, the inner animal within us. So you can imagine it will cause a lot of conflict. But amongst the half-truth and manipulation and all of that, there are also going to be like truly shocking news that will open our eyes, and disclosures, revelations about technology without a shadow of a doubt. Technology and information about this is going to be part of this picture. Another important energy is Venus starting to hold a trine with Pluto. Now, the exactity of this conversation is going to be next week around the 6th, but we're still going to be feeling it. This is empowerment. This is where, individually speaking, we have skills, masteries, knowledge. We have a lot of value in our lives that can give us power. Because Pluto, on one hand, it does make us feel powerless by squaring the nodes of the moon. But this is the instance where Pluto does reflect where we have power. No, the sign of Venus in the sign of Virgo, our devotion, our purity, our honesty, everything that we know how to do. And this doesn't necessarily mean diplomas. Because Pluto in the sign of Capricorn on its own does mean you need this qualification, that qualification, diploma, paper, training, etc., etc. But in this instance, with trining this Venus in the sign of Virgo, this actually means whatever it is that you can do, practically can do, you can cook, or whatever you have experience and mastery at, and whatever you have a certain kind of purity, devotion, dedication at, it is your greatest power and your greatest value. So this is where our skills, officially or not, bless us, help us, give us power, give us the chance to navigate out of something. Another energy here is that Mercury is gonna, this is more the 5th really, holding in conjunction a quincunx to the nodes of the moon. So again, information due to the intensity and all of the scorpionic energy playing out at the world stage. So unlawful transformation, death. Enough of this, because it's pretty clear the rest of the picture. That disrupts us. That sets us off from our individual course. Now the quincunx. Ignorance, shutting it off, it's not real for me. Well, ultimately, that is not an option. That is worse than allowing it to stress you out. The news, the information, whatever it goes on. Sheer ignorance or toxic positivity is the worst possible option. However, being aware that yes, absolutely, this is happening, it is horrible, but I do not agree with it. I don't want to support it. I strongly disagree with it. That is the right, let's say, alchemical action. Because when you disagree with something, you ask for something else. You ask, and energetically speaking, you start replacing it. You attack. When I say attack, not in a scorpionic way, actually in the higher, with the higher octave of Scorpio, yes, even in the scorpionic way, it's like an acid that dissolves something, that which you don't want to be part of, that which you strongly oppose, but with awareness, not ignorance. Your thoughts, your energy, your actions attack it like an acid. Did they start dissolving it? But it's also very, very important of what you want to replace it with, because that sets it up. It cannot create it yet, but it creates it ethereally. Life is nothing but, a quantum soup where our intention, our state of being, our thoughts and beliefs and feelings in unison will choose from the massive soup of quantum possibilities that which resonates the most. So just opposing something is not gonna do all that much, creationally speaking. It's just gonna frustrate you. But strongly opposing a side of reality, but having a plan B, an alternative, creating something else, that kind of works. And that is what we need to do with this Mercury quincunx, the nodes of the moon, and of course Mercury quincunx Aries as well. This is where we oppose it, we disown it, as in I cannot support this with my belief, with energy, even if you don't have anything to do physically, materially, just oppose it with your belief and energy. I strongly don't want for something that is going on the world stage to continue. You oppose it. You wish for it to stop. You wish for justice. And you consume your own energy with this wish. You consume your soul matrix energy, basically. So that means you're taking action. But what you want to replace it with, for example, peace, cooperation, for everyone's life to finally go fast forward and for us to start building things, doing things, embodying and living certain things. That is a very viable replacement. So this is how we have to use this energy, where violent action or choosing side and immersing into the doom and gloom, that is definitely not a possibility, not an option. It will just tear us apart internally. Sheer ignorance is also not a possibility. Life, reality, the karmic forces, the divine intelligence left us no choice than to start truly working, start making a choice, start choosing the reality that we need to create, and also allowing the old reality to crumble by not being afraid. If we are afraid that we'll be poor, won't have medical insurance, they'll take away our house, our home, if we are afraid of all of this, then that fear blocks the deconstruction. The fear keeps the old order intact. So we also need, but we are after a Venus retrograde in Leo that taught us to be brave and not really care about certain consequences. So that taught us to live life courageously for the adventure of it. But at the same time, there is a saving grace in the air. Again, before I say the saving grace, this Mars quincunx is Chiron to the precision. So again, something is gonna wound collectively and individually as well. But Mercury holds an absolutely beautiful, supremely harmonious trine with Neptune. So again, as I said, the power of faith, the power of creation. If Scorpio is the sign of alchemy, transmutation, changing reality, well, you can imagine Neptune is the divine source. It is the ether. It is the divine primordial soup that creates. So this is where if we put our minds onto alchemical, frequency, where we truly invite every single moment into our lives, that which is our truest faith, our biggest dream, and not necessarily practically, as in I want this and that and that and that on this date, that date, this, my car has to be this color, my house here and there. We must ignore these details because we're not at that stage yet. We must work with the primordial soup, which has no shape, which has no form, and which doesn't know us individually. It doesn't know us as, I don't know, your name, born on this date, and you're specific. It just knows that you're a power source, a generator. So you must generate based on the frequency. Peace, love, well-being, and positive challenges. Because a life without challenges is not an adventure, So the love of that, the feeling of that, the frequency of that is more than enough. And this is how we embrace the creative side of alchemy. And for artists, for healers, for poets, for public speakers, for everyone who works with art, this energy is absolutely beautiful. For channelers, spiritualists, astrologers, anyone who works with the channeling of spirit, this energy is also absolutely wonderful. And all of this is preparing us for that Scorpio new moon that will be at 20 degrees of Scorpio. And what does that mean? Uranus will oppose it almost precisely. And that new moon will be hand in hand with the ruling planet of Scorpio, Mars. So that has great intensity to it. But that has something positive as well. It gives us the power to alchemize. It gives us the power to create, to transmute, to the rebirth side, a new moon. At the same time, the opposite as well, to destroy, to poison everything. Absolutely. But this is where we need to make the choice of what we do. We really, really need to. And later on, as this, actually not later on, around that new moon on the 14th of November, Mars will be also in the position where it will start holding the trine with Neptune. It won't be an exact trine, but it will be operational. That is also the power of alchemy. But we must enlighten, elevate, purify, and sanctify our thoughts and our mental sphere before we get to that. And that is what we're doing this week, purging everything out and entering into the right kind of state where we can generate continuously a certain frequency that is our greatest truth. And Saturn standing still in the sky, preparing to bring certain major karmic conclusions for us and of course, when I say major karmic conclusions, this isn't just this week. This is this week, this year, and next year, and chances are even next year, after next year. So this is a prolonged period of big closures, completions, and karmic finalities in our lives individually and personally as well. So that period begins. But at the same time, that Saturn also asks us to embody our healthy faith. And to have a healthy state, we can generate a healthy frequency for ourselves, because that is very, very important. So thank you so much everyone for listening. I really hope that this was helpful. And please remember, it doesn't matter how heavy things get, we always have a choice of what we generate, what kind of frequency we generate individually. And that is not ignorance, because we're not ignoring what is around us. We're not ignoring the 3D. We're actually very aware, and that's why we bring to the table the same intensity of energy of what we want to replace it with. So thank you, everyone. I really hope that this was at least a little bit helpful, and it you might remember this guidance, this advice, my words when we're trapped in intensity, especially the blockages of the 3D that are also part of this picture right now. And if you'd like to support my work, please like and share. And if you'd like to support me and help me create more such horoscopes in the future, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you, everyone. Wishing you a blessed Samhain again. Until next time, bye for now.